Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. Just want to give you a little information about the mission of the Newsa-Cast. Our mission stems from the mission of the Red Smith Banquet, and that mission was to support youth sports in the Fox Valley. Over the 57 years of its existence, we've been honored to give out over $1 million to various youth sports organizations throughout the Fox Valley. The Newsa-Cast is looking to continue that mission and support youth sports as well. You can help us do that by donating to the Newsa-Cast and the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
On today's Newsa-Cast, we talk Saints youth football and Saints youth wrestling with Peter Katz. Tosh and I take an old look at new, which is sponsored by our good friends at Raleigh Winter. Our throwback this week, it's an appropriate one. We've all heard of him. We've all read him. He's been on Sports Illustrated. He's been on CNN. He's been on Pro Football Weekly. Peter King retired this week, and he came to the Red Smith Banquet in 1999. And Tosh and I end the program like we always do with a little It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting. So what do you say? Let's get this show on the road.
You learn a lot about yourself in wrestling, that's for sure. It's you and one other person, and you're either on top or on your back at the end. And it's a way to succeed through failure in many ways. Or you learn to work harder, get better, take the next steps. And that applies to not only wrestling and football, but life in general. You got to work harder or you're going to get pinned.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to another episode of what's easily becoming Wisconsin's favorite podcast.
Easily.
That is the Newsa-Cast. Yeah, easily, Joe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Easily. We're fabulous.
Yeah, we're fabulous. We love it. Everybody should love it. You should make sure you get it out to your friends and family and make sure they love it as well. So, but enough of that shameless plugging. We got another episode here, Joe. I think it's going to be a good one. How about you?
No, absolutely, Tosh. Digging into football a little bit, with youth football with the Saints program, similar to we talked to Nick Solom a month, 2 months ago about the Chargers and the AYFA program. The Saints are not necessarily part of the AYFA, but kind of follow that same model. And it was great to catch up with Peter, and we talk a little bit of wrestling. And I mean, Peter's just an incredible guy, and what's going on at FVL, I know we've talked to various folks through the Newsa-Cast here, and boy, they have a lot of building plans going into place, and there's a lot of action going on, not at FVL and at Xavier. Xavier's getting a new turf field. It's pretty exciting.
It's cool to see a partnership between the two schools to build that youth program so that when those kids are coming to Xavier and FVL, they have that foundation for their programs at the high school level. So it's good to see. And you know what, I think we hear about this. It's also fantastic because when those kids play each other, whether it's wrestling or football, it's a battle. It's a grind because they want to beat each other because they played with each other for, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Good old fashioned crosstown rivals, right, Tosh? Nothing better in high school sports than that. That's
absolutely true. And speaking of high school sports, Joe, we had a lot going on this past weekend, and we have some, excitement. First of all, let's just talk about some of the teams moving on in basketball.
Yeah, we're in the heart of it. So this comes out on Thursday, 3:15 today on Thursday. Xavier, the girls, are going to be at the Resch Center. They're going to be playing. Fingers crossed that they continue the run. They're playing some great basketball. Their volleyball team won a state championship in the fall. See if the girls can, the basketball team keep that run going. And the boys are about 2 weeks behind the girls.
2 weeks behind, yeah.
Yeah, so they're FVL and Xavier, both of those programs are great programs. They're playing well, so they're going to be playing here this week and Good luck to those boys as well. The run starts right now.
Yeah, and we have Neenah going to state girls.
Sure.
Fantastic. We see some really good basketball being played there. So shout out to the Neenah girls as well going to state. This will be an exciting week for them as well.
I know it's been there, Tosh, for a few years, but it is kind of cool that the state tournament, the girls tournament, is up at the Resch Center. It's a nice.
It is.
I was talking to last night. I was actually talking to our friend Paul from AppletonSportsPage.com. He'll be covering it as well. But he was telling me what a nice facility it is up there. The WIA does run nice events, especially at the state level like that, and that's pretty cool. Just up the road, and to have some of the local teams playing, that's exciting stuff. Yeah,
you know what it is. I mean, it used to be tons of excitement when it was at the old field house. Mm-hmm. And you just pack everybody into that. It would still be cool to go down to Madison, but I think Green Bay and the Resch Center does an excellent job. They host these teams. They treat them, just like royalty. And it's a perfect arena. You're on top of things. It's close, and it's excitement. There's a lot of excitement there for these state tournaments.
Absolutely. In the district, we talked Matt Tenhanken last week, 2 weeks ago, about that district, with the draft coming up. And there's a lot to do around that area for sure. So,
absolutely.
Good luck to those teams in basketball. I mean, this is it's the best time of year to be a basketball fan, both of high school and college. And we should shout out Tosh as well. I mean, we've been talking, especially on the Noosa Minute for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about wrestling, and Appleton North had Brock Arndt and Jake Stoffel. Those guys, they competed really well. Stoffel won, a state title again, but the Kaukauna, Kaukauna is just on a run, man. I mean, we all know the Kaukauna wrestling is just it's like Kimberly football. It's just the best of the best, and they won the Division I team state title again. I think it was the fourth straight year, I want to say. That they won, so that was pretty cool last Saturday to see that happen. And Dan Scherenbrock too, to bring up a past Newsa-Cast episode, talked about the just the feeling at state, the 8 mats that are in the Cole Center, and just that whole atmosphere. So yeah, it's pretty cool that all happened. And
I believe Lux Casco won, was it the D2?
I believe you're right. Yeah, that's right.
And some people say it's the best atmosphere in state tournaments.
Yeah, people say
wrestling tournament is fantastic. We also, as long as we're talking about accomplishments, we got to shout out to UWG B-boy men's.
Yeah.
And Coach Sundance Wicks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coach of the year for the Horizon. One of the biggest turnarounds in college basketball history, going from statistically the worst team in college basketball last year to they're the number 2 or number 3 seed in the Horizon. I think number 3.
Yeah.
But they went on a fantastic run, and they're playing fantastic basketball right now. So hopefully they can do some damage come the Horizon League tournament.
And that gets cranked up here. How cool would that be for them to go back to the tournament? Make the big dance again? Oh, that'd be so sweet.
After the year they had last year.
Right.
That would be pretty crazy. 18 wins this year. That's fantastic.
Gosh, we have to try to get Sundance. I think he'd be a really cool interview.
I think he would be. Yeah. I think he's a little busy right now, but maybe we can get something in the works.
That's right. We'll
Besides that, we had a nice weekend, Joe.
Did you
get outside and do anything?
Well, I delivered a lot of mail, but I was actually off Sunday. Actually, I played a little disc golf, Tosh, first time this year. So that was just at Tallulah. It was near. Okay. Just rode my bike over there and just played 9 holes. But it had been a while. But it was just nice to get outside. It's nice to sulk in the sun, feel the breeze. Yep. Took the dog for a walk. Just things like that. How about you, Tosh? What did you get outside?
We got outside a little bit. Ethan was working at Pullman's, so Melissa and I took a walk down on the river while he was working, waiting for to pick him up. So that was kind of fun. It's always nice to walk down there. And when you walk along the river on that south side of the Fox, and you see really what a beautiful campus Lawrence is.
Oh, absolutely!
And just all those buildings. It's fantastic what they've done along the river there. It's it's really cool to see. And there are all kinds of people out on the trail. So that was kind of fun.
I wish I would have known you were down there, Tosh. I was on that mail route over the weekend, Friday and Saturday. But no, you're absolutely right. What they've done in the flats, a lot of just beautiful residential buildings in there, and then some new ones. And you're right, that coffee shop, the Coffee Wizard, I think, right there at 800 Law, that's really good. And the trails, and you're right, Lawrence is... Boy, it's part of Appleton's landscape. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful campus, great school. And, we've had a little history with Lawrence on the podcast as well, with Joe Vandenacker and Coach Mikey Zadraga. So hopefully we can continue to have a little history and maybe get some of the other coaches on in the future as well.
And Tosh, you know who else was down in the flats this Saturday? Was Diggstown. They were at Rock Garden. They were putting down some tracks. Well, I'm going to be a plug god today, Tosh. You got to go back and listen to the Diggstown episode. And in that episode, they told us that this was the weekend that they're going to put down some new tracks. They wrote some new songs. So we're anxious to see. I think they've got another weekend in the studio. But, if you follow them on social, they had a bunch of pictures from the weekend. Look fun. So, congrats to those guys. Can't wait to hear what comes out of those sessions.
And we're going to plug them when they're playing. So if you hear us plug them, get to a show because they are fantastic. They put on a good show. You want to get up and dance and groove. So great band. Love Diggstown. Love all those guys. And we're going to continue to support them as much as we possibly can. No,
definitely. And all right, we got one more selfish plug for ourselves, though, Tosh, to support us. And I was thinking about this the other day because part of the Newsa-Cast is we have the Red Smith Banquet throwbacks. And that was really kind of like we've said, sort of the original idea for this podcast. That was kind of the main piece. So I always enjoy listening to them. I listened to them for the first time Thursday, right along with everybody else. We literally give Taylor, our editor, a DVD disc. I don't have a way to listen to a DVD anymore, so I can't even listen to what I'm giving him. And I listened to it for the first time. I got to tell you, I love our throwbacks. Lou Carnesecca last week, and it really, really brings you back. The audio quality is really, really good, and it's Jay Billis. For any Pardon My Take fans out there, they had Jay Billis was on Pardon My Take a couple of last week, and it was an odd interview for those guys for that episode, but it made me think. We just put out the Jay Billis interview, and Jay was so good. It was so good. It's so good. worth a listen. So I guess it's just begging and pleading, go check it out. It really is really, really cool. I think it's enjoyable, and hit like and subscribe. But more than anything, just enjoy that content. It's pretty cool. They were here in Appleton, Wisconsin, in whatever year, you choose.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, that's the stuff that we're trying to do. So, help us support our mission, which you here at the beginning of the podcast, and try to support that youth sports and, take advantage of, if you weren't ever able to go to the Red Smith Banquet, you get to hear these interviews. So look at those throwbacks on YouTube or listen to part of them on our podcast.
Well, Tosh, we've rambled on. That's a long open for us, but giddy up. We're away we go onto the show. It's that time again, once again, for an old look at new, brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates, celebrating 55 years. Did you know that in 1962, an Appleton junior high school teacher with a strong work ethic started a residential realty company? His name, Raleigh Winter. 3 generations later, the Winters still hold true to a strong work ethic and an excellent reputation in the community. Today, Raleigh Winter and Associates remain actively involved in providing retail, office, and industrial users an affordable, well-designed working environment through the creation and/or acquisition of quality real estate in the Fox cities and even beyond new. So what do you say? Let's take an old look at new.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it is time for that old look at new, that look at history throughout the area, whether it's Northeast Wisconsin or the States, and sometimes we venture off into the good old United States. So, Joe, what do you have for an old look at new this week?
Well, Tosh, have you ever You know what? Well, we've all driven around, right? You ever just wonder as you're driving down a street, how did the street get its name? You know, some of them are obvious presidents and College Avenue. There's a college on the street, but stumbled across this from the Appleton Historical Society, and actually the Appleton Public Library, I think, originally had this story, but it's two streets, Elvin Street and Foster Street in Appleton, and curiously, it's named after one guy, Elvin Foster. I bet you don't know who Elvin Foster is, do you?
Absolutely not.
Well, Elvin Foster was the second mayor of Appleton in 1859. Okay. He was the mayor of Appleton for 1 year. But so Elvin and Foster Street was named after the second mayor of Appleton, Elvin Foster. Thought was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tosh, how about you? What's your old look at new?
So I don't know why I had this memory, but I'm going to go back to a memory I had, and maybe some people don't remember this show, but I think a lot of people our age will remember it. I remember sitting down with my dad and watching this show, Hill Street Blues.
Oh, yeah.
And Hill Street Blues had an actor from Kenosha who was born March 7th, 1940, and that's Daniel J. Travanti.
Nice.
And he was the captain on Hill Street Blues from 1981 to 1987. He won Emmy Awards for it on good old NBC.
Yeah.
He went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. He was born in Kenosha. He also attended Yale School of Drama. And
nice.
He has all kinds of TV credits, but I think a lot of people remember him from that show, Hill Street Blues. And I remember sitting and watching that with my dad back in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was must-see TV back then for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. William Dafoe. I mean, there's some actors, Chris Farley, a lot of Wisconsinites that reside in, born in Wisconsin. So pretty cool, Tosh. I love that kind of stuff. No doubt about that.
I thought that was kind of an interesting one. So got to keep up those Wisconsin actors and actresses, right?
That's right. We got to let folks know that some pretty cool people come from this area. So well done. And that's Tosh, another rousing rendition of an old look at new.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to our interview for the week. We're going to be interviewing Peter Katz, who started the Saints football program. Saints is a combination between Xavier and FVL for youth football, beginning at the 6th grade level. We're also going to talk about Saints wrestling. They just recently started last year, Saints wrestling program. And this gives the opportunity for students from the middle schools at Xavier and FVL middle schools to provide that opportunity to play and participate in football and wrestling. We also get to hear a little bit about Peter and his journey playing football in Manitowoc and heading to UW Whitewater to play. We hope you enjoy this. It's a fantastic interview. Do want to put a plug in, foxvalleysaints.com. Where you can register for football if you have a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader who's interested. And also, their wrestling program is actually 4K through 8th grade now. So if you have an interest in wrestling as well, check out that foxvalleysaints.com and enjoy the interview.
Thanks for having me. This is a new experience for me.
Well, one, it's great to have you, and two, I mean, you have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. I mean, for sure, the Saints. I mean, it's been fun to watch. That start from the beginning for you, but obviously the youth football. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grade program, the Fox Valley Saints, a co-op with basically Xavier and FVL. I mean, that's been. You're the man. You're the one that did it, started it, and still running. What year is this now for the Saints?
Yeah, this will be year 5 coming up. So It's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We years ago when it first kind of what led into it was there was sort of a 8th grade only, FVL and Xavier team in the middle schools, and that was kind of after Pop Warner ended, when kids did that through 7th grade. Well, so when Pop Warner was no longer supporting 6th and 7th grade football, it kind of just became a necessity that we had to do something, because the Appleton, middle schools moved off to do their own thing from, I think, 5th through 8th or 6th through 8th. And then Hortonville moved off to do their own thing. And all of a sudden the FVL kids and Xavier bound kids are stuck there saying we're one team against 0 teams. So it kind of became a necessity.
So how long have you been coaching? I was trying to remember when you first, my son was in 8th grade, and I know you were his coach then. And that was technically before the Saints really took off as a program, right?
Right. That's right. So I actually, my oldest son, who's 19 now, I started coaching when he was in 3rd grade. Okay. So with Pop Warner, and moved up with him through 8th grade. And so he and your son were on that 8th grade team together. And that was still the FVL Xavier middle school combo. And that was a pretty successful year. We had, I think, 40 kids out for the team, which was, big numbers for that program at the time. And then it was the following year, I think it was 2 years after that. So in 2020 is when my second oldest was in 8th grade, and he was going into 8th grade, and the 6th and 7th graders behind him had nowhere to play. So we could have just wrote it out and played 8th grade football and not had any 6th or 7th graders have any chance. But in talking with Coach Hinkins and Coach Yeager at the high schools, I was like, well, we could do this, but we're going to need to have 6th and 7th graders because eventually there's no 8th grade football. Right. And after there's no 8th grade football, then there's no high school football. We're playing 8-man or something like that at our high schools. And that's no good. So we needed something for the future of both these school systems. And I think both school systems recognized it and got behind it, pretty immediately. There was a lot of, things to work out, but I think the support was there right away, and a lot of thanks to those varsity head coaches.
That's really good to hear, because that is a challenge actually to first get the buy-in from the head coaches. I mean, you can't look any further than Kimberly to see how a successful youth program works, and then the success that they have, how that translates to varsity when you specifically football, but to get the buy-in from the coaches, and both those guys are longtime coaches. I mean, they understand how it works. So it's great to hear that they had the buy-in at the youth level. But the school, so you co-op. I mean, were there any issues, or did you like you said, you had immediate buy-in from the administration that Xavier and FVL are going to combine?
I won't say immediate buy-in from the administration.
Okay,
because there's money involved. Anytime there's money involved,
sure,
then you have to do, dot your I's and cross your T's, put together a budget, tell them how you're going to do it, work out every detail, and once they're certain that it's a go, and that it's not going to require any, because the school already, they're provided and very generous. I'm not trying to minimize how generous the schools have been, both an initial startup fund that the FPL Booster Club, Friends of Foxes, is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Friends of Foxes, years ago now, gave us a little bit to get kind of up and running, and Xavier Middle School allows us to play on their field with no fees. They don't charge us anything to use their storage. We use their old equipment, covered under their insurance umbrella. There's a lot of little things that you don't think about when, you say, let's start a football program. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so once we had shown that we were able, I showed that we were able to do it, it became kind of a no-brainer. But it was a lot of doing. It took hundreds of hours. I'm not exaggerating. Hundreds of hours in meetings and conversations and, getting stuff together. We got a nice donation from the Pop Warner, Fox Valley Pop Warner, supplied us with some used shoulder pads and practice pants and things to kind of get us up and started. But we are fully independent of school system financial support at this point. It's fully through our sponsors and registration fees and donations that this program runs, and it's done fantastic. There is so much support from all around. We pull kids from as far as De Pere, New London, Oshkosh. They all come together from 18 different schools. We've had across the Fox Valley, primarily Christian schools of the Fox Valley, but anyone, it's kind of designed for players that are considering at least Fox Valley Lutheran or Xavier High Schools, as well as anyone who is currently attending one of those Christian schools in the Fox Valley, mainly because it's not trying to be exclusive. It's just to provide a opportunity for those particular students.
And that's what's cool. I mean, opportunity to play football. That's really what this league is all about. The youth is all about. And it's been a lot of fun to watch you just grow. And nobody is ever going to understand the amount of hours that you put into it. We had Nick Salm on, Tosh, I don't know what, a few months ago, and he talked about, starting the AYFA, and I know Nick was helpful and with you, but again, nobody's ever gonna, the insurance and all the little fine details that nobody ever thinks about, that you like you said, you spend hundreds of hours working on this stuff.
So it's so much, and building a website and a registration system, online registration system. No one's doing that for me. I don't have an assistant.
Right. Yeah.
We're doing it. Now I have a lot of, don't check me. I have a lot of help. The coaches are amazing. I don't need to go out and coach anymore. I haven't coached the last 2 years. My boys being in high school, I need to, spend time with them and my daughter. But I'm out on the field. I'm checking in. I'm making sure the coaches have everything they need. Making sure supplies and everything are up, up to date, and everything is. Everything is kosher. But as you were talking about with, getting things organized, Nick Salm was very helpful. I met with him multiple times. And he helped kind of walk me through the process. He didn't, directly participate in the process, but he showed me what, kind of things would need to be done, him having had done it just 3 years prior. And it was kind of an interesting story. We were going to be, they asked us 3 years prior to us doing that if we wanted to be part of the AYFA. And we said, at this point, the school system wasn't, requiring it, didn't really feel like they needed it. Pop Warner was a great, program. Our kids were getting an opportunity to play football. Yeah. And so, he offered at that time, and the school system kind of declined. I was relatively new to the, administration there. And so I didn't push it too much. But again, he put a lot of work into that first, those first couple seasons. It's like getting a train moving, right. Strapping the train to your back and pulling it. But after that, once the train gets moving and you got the wheels, the cogs in place, and the right people who I've had, like I said, a lot of help from my Saints board of directors these last couple of years. We've developed to help make decisions and kind of divide some of the responsibility and provide transparency. I think that's important to both school systems. And so Bill Hygis, Chad Schuler, Andy Huck, they've been really helpful for me in these last couple of years.
There's nothing better than a Saturday afternoon. It's an event, right? I mean, the food is going, it smells great, the sound system, the music, yep. the kids, I mean, the uniforms are sharp. I mean, it's a fun event. I think that the participants have fun. I think the fans have fun. I know the officials have fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, I love it. I'm out there on Saturdays, especially all of our home games. Sometimes I'm out there flipping burgers myself. Like you said, the smell, the sounds, the atmosphere, the music playing. We get high school kids from. Yeah. So when we play our games at FVL, the players from Fox Valley Lutheran will come and man the chains. They do the announcing. They do the music. They do the scoreboard. They might help in concessions. And And it's a ton of fun. The kids have a ton of fun with it too. It's usually a junior or senior who gets to, pull the mic and be the announcer. But they have a lot of fun with it, and you can tell.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's it's fun for me too. And then, same thing when we play at Xavier, Xavier High School, we have the Xavier guys doing it, and get, like I said, a lot of support from both of those high school systems. In doing that, they're just there and they're like, what do you need? How can we help? Let's make this great.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I can't thank Seth and Dave enough.
So what have your numbers been like from that start 5 years ago to where you are today?
Great question. And you mentioned that earlier about growing. Yeah, we, in 2020, which, granted was a COVID year, we were one of the only teams to play football, in the area that year. And so we got the support of both schools. Both schools, high schools were playing. But middle school football was kind of all but, dead for that season. So had to do a lot of work to get games together. But we did get 80 kids signed up across the 3 grades in that first season. Maybe it was 82. The following year, 2021 picked up a little bit. It's been growing every year, about 98 the following year, 115 the following year, and this past season 132.
Wow.
Across the 3 grades. So it was, it's really, I think it's caught on. I think people know the name, they know the system, they know that it's, high quality football, and not only that, but the right kind of football from middle school. I think, our philosophy and mission in this is not to win championships in middle school football right now. Kids, we love to win, but it's really all about developing the kids, developing players, developing young men and women that, have, strong character, work ethic, fun, friendships, memories that they build in middle school football. And then, if we happen to win on Saturday, that's a result of those other things. It's not the primary goal of this program. Although, I will say we've done a lot of winning, and that's fun. We had a very successful team in addition to all those things. Again, because of our great coaches, because of all the support of the families that are part of it, and of course the kids who put in the effort.
No, absolutely. So, have you noticed, so 5 years in, have you noticed actually at both high schools as they enter and play varsity, some of these kids have even graduated, I guess. Have you noticed difference in play? I mean, in just skill wise, has it made a difference?
Well, I feel as if, so the current class, so the current seniors, the incoming seniors this year will be the first class of the Saints.
Okay, excellent. Yes,
that have gone, that have gone all the way through, or that went, started in 8th grade. So it's really we're kind of just starting to see that, and I mean, you saw last year both teams, both high schools were very successful. Xavier, I feel like they were right there with Lodi in the state semifinal, and if they beat them, they have a very good chance of winning it all, because Lodi ends up winning. Same with FVL. They didn't get quite as far in the playoffs, but they had a really nice year. I think there may have been some injuries that got ahead of them. But, we see those sophomore and juniors of that last year's team coming in. And yes, I think it makes a difference. It's, Pop Warner was a great program, and it is a great program. But I think the continuity that we find, when you are starting in 6th grade all together and moving through as a group, is different when you're in, a single program, rather than, you're going to, through 6th grade, 7th grade, and then you got to start kind of all over in 8th grade. And it got kind of messy in the past. And so that continuity, I think, has made a big difference.
Yeah.
And actually the class that came through, our oldest sons, Eric, that were seniors this past year, but the year before, that team, for much of it, did move through together, because I coached them in 6th grade, 7th grade, and then as we moved into the co-op in 8th grade. So it was kind of like that was really the first class of Saints. And so you really saw that momentum, I think, in the last couple of years, trending toward that. And like you said, Joe, the trend of these things, Kimberly started years ago, then the AYFA picked up, and really the trend is that the middle school sort of feeder program playing into the high schools is important for the success of the high schools. And I hope we can be a part of that. And I think we are starting to be.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. And Pop Warner feeds into you guys. And it's you have a terrific football career starting in, first grade or whatever, Pop Warner through the Saints through high school. It's pretty cool the way that works.
Yeah. So I work with Kurt Dietzen at Pop Warner, having coached through there, got to know him through the years, and now he kind of feeds me the names and contact info, and
sure.
I'll go to a game or two of the 5th graders, because they kind of bunch the FVL and Xavier kids together, so it's not quite Saints, but it's they're already kind of starting that in the 5th grade level at tackle football, and maybe in the 4th grade, and then so we work together, and then I make sure that our school systems both promote Pop Warner, and kind of all works together.
I mean, you're teaching these kids about football. I mean, most of these kids aren't going to play past high school, but they're always going to have the love of football, and their kids will play football, yes. and they're. I like the fact that they're learning and they're playing together, and a lot of times they have coaches, for a couple of years together. They're not switching coaches every year. The stages for these kids playing football is well thought out and pretty neat. And
I think one of the best things about this whole program is when these kids do get to high school and play each other for the Apple Bowl.
Yeah.
What a great, that's just, I mean, these kids are out there after the game talking and, shaking hands because they've played for 3 years, 4 years together.
Yeah. And I've seen multiple instances of these guys after the game going and they take off their jerseys and they're like switching jerseys for a picture after the game. It's super cool. And we get, we've switched, wherever the Apple Bowl is being held the last, 4 years, we've been able to, not in 2020, but in the last 3 years, we've gone to the Apple Bowl, all the Saints, we even call it Saints Night as well, youth night / the Apple Bowl. They all come out, the kids run out at halftime, get recognized, they're all wearing the uniform, standing on the sidelines, doing, warm-ups with the team. They run out with the team. It's really cool. And they get to kind of experience that right from the get-go. It is cool. And, we kind of bill it to them as you guys are the future of the Apple Bowl. And they really, this last year it was a little rough because we had a thunderstorm that kind of pushed back halftime quite a bit. And most of the kids actually and the parents stuck it out until we finished at 11 o'clock at night.
And both schools too. Now you've got some nice facility upgrades coming, right? Xavier's putting turf in. I see that everything's ripped up and ready to go for coming up here in a couple of weeks. So that'll be cool.
Yep. I think they are scheduled to. I thought they were scheduled to be done by early summer. With it, not push the season too much, which would be really nice because I know that's messed up the season for a few schools locally, like Little Chute a year or two ago, and with their turf field going in. So I hope the warm winter allows them to break, get in and do their job quicker, because that's going to be really nice. The turf field, it was difficult. A lot of times on Saturdays it's raining,
right?
And they got a game coming up that Friday. They don't want us to tear up the field, right before a varsity game with 3 middle school games. So we had to pivot sometimes and play our games on a muddy middle school field. And it's a lot of coordinating to get everyone, all those teams and all those coaches and all those refs and all those trainers and all everything moved over to the middle school. But it'll be nice with a turf field to be able to just go, no matter what the weather. I saw that the facilities they're building at FVL now, it's going to be a pretty big thing. Is that going to include some indoor turf too or something?
Well, their first phase is an indoor field house. Their second phase is the turf field and an indoor 50-yard turf field as well.
Wow.
So they have a couple phases in plan and some new baseball facilities, softball facilities. And so they have some big plans out there.
Wow. That's great. I mean, so it's going to be great. Obviously we won't be able to play on an indoor 50-yard field, but the facilities over there at FVL are really nice. And, for the outdoor field, it's surprising to me to hear the kids, I think, like grass. When they've played on grass, they kind of want to try the turf. And when they primarily play on turf, then they say, oh, they got grass. For a lot of reasons, turf is superior, but I get it. I played football. When I played at Whitewater and we had to go play Stout, I felt like it was just a carpet on top of concrete. I guess that was 25 years ago. So, turf maybe has made some upgrades.
Well, you mentioned that. I'd love to get a little history of you. Where you grew up and what your sports were in high school. We always kind of get a little story about our people we're interviewing. So if you could catch us up a little bit on that, that'd be great.
I'll give you the quick bio. Yeah, I was. I grew up in Manitowoc, not too far away. Went to Manitowoc Roncalli. I played football, basketball, and track. We had some pretty successful teams there. We ended up winning the last 4 years of WISA's existence, so state championships at Roncalli. And then I went on to Whitewater, played 4 years there, redshirted a year and played 4 years. Had some successful seasons there as well. I did some track and field. Actually, it was field. I was a field guy. I was 280 pounds. I wasn't doing any track. And threw shot and discus there for a couple of seasons. And then, knowing the amount of time that we got to commit to football in the fall and then the off season to lifting and conditioning to do that and take the classes necessary to go to medical school, it wasn't going to be possible. So I had to stop track and did that, went that route. Spent some time in Milwaukee at the Medical College of Wisconsin, did 4 years at the University of Iowa in my dermatology residency, and came back, and here I am. So
running the Saints.
That's kind of the long and short of it. But football has been a big part of my life all throughout. I think it's been, a really important part of my development. Looking back, you can say, I am who I am because of that game. And that's something that I'm really passionate about bringing to kids, as well. You can tell I get really, emotional about it because it was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And I see the kids as they grow up, the friendships, the memories that they make. And it can be life-changing for these kids, for some of them. And some of them, they just want to play and have fun with their friends and whatever. Yeah. And that's great too. And some can make it a passion and some can make it a big part of their life. So
absolutely.
That's what it was for me. And that's part of why I not only started, but continue to be a part of it. Now my kids have moved on and, it's just, I feel like, kind of a calling, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah, we need people like that, and we just need people like you. So many life lessons in the sport of football. Getting back to Whitewater, and that's an incredible stadium, incredible atmosphere in the program. I mean, that really had to be life changing playing football there. That's big time football at UW Whitewater.
Yeah, we had some good teams. My first year that I played, which was my freshman year, I redshirted, and then I was, believe it or not, a defensive lineman, nose tackle at that time. That was 25 years and 65 pounds ago.
Who was your coach? Your head coach?
Bob Brezowitz.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that first year we're preseason ranked number 1 in the nation. And we had a great season, won conference, went into the playoffs, and just bombed in the second round of the playoffs to a team we should have killed.
Yeah.
And then we had some graduation, we had some loss and some injuries, and had good seasons after that, but were never kind of national contenders in the time I was there. Mm-hmm. And my kids always make sure to let me know that I wasn't on any of those national championship teams. But I like to tell them that, I was, my senior year, I was one of the captains on the team, and these freshmen and sophomores that were there were the, first national champions. So it was sowing the seeds for them.
That's right. Building the foundation, right? Without that, there's no national championship. So.
There may or may not be any truth to that, but I like to play that up to my boys because they like to try to tear me down a little bit.
Some are saying you deserve all the credit. I don't know. Maybe that's.
I'm not sure anyone's saying that.
Well, we talked. I mean, football, a huge part of football, but you're also involved in wrestling as well, and kind of have a similar thing going with youth wrestling as well.
Yeah. So this past season, we wanted to kind of start ramping up the wrestling program at both, again, FVL and Xavier. So taking the Saints platform, it was a relatively simple thing for me to do. I just, we made a little separate account and made it a separate website. We made different registration. We put the word out and said, Saints Wrestling, and then you could just tell all the kids that are football players, hey, you should go out for wrestling. So, they didn't have that opportunity before. It wasn't there. Xavier Middle School did have a program, but it wasn't as well put out. The word wasn't out as much, and the opportunity wasn't there for any of the FBL, bound students. So, working with Coach Carl Schwerin, who's the head coach at FVL, and then probably the biggest person was Austin Sabani, who works at the middle school as the Phi Ed teacher, but is now this year his first year as the Xavier High School varsity head coach. So he really was integral in getting that started because he's a wrestling coach. I was never a wrestler. As I said before, I was a basketball player. I got into wrestling when my son, Will, who's, again, he's graduated. He was a good wrestler in high school. And we had a mat in the basement over, when COVID was happening. And, I bought a mat. We put it in the basement. They couldn't work out. So I was, we were wrestling in the basement he was teaching me all kinds of stuff. And I kind of got into it. Starting then and then started to, wrestled in my first wrestling tournament ever last year or 2 years ago.
Nice.
So old timers division.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. How'd you do?
Well, my first one crashed and burned. It was I got pinned in the first round on one of them, and the second one I lost 3-2 decision to the Verona assistant coach. So I was out of that tournament. The next one, I got pinned both of my matches. Wrestling's a tough sport to break into when you're 43,
I would imagine.
44.
It's true.
I would imagine.
But then this last year, we worked out a lot, and I got 2 wins. I ended up taking second place at a tournament. So
nice.
Anyway, it's fun. That was an ultra old timers division, so there were people actually my age wrestling in that one. So it was a little more even than me going against college wrestlers. It wasn't really fair.
So big question: the next morning, how was it getting out of bed?
Oh, it was bad for a month after. Yeah. My shoulders didn't feel right for a month after that.
I would imagine.
Oh my gosh, that is not made for old men. That is a sport for young bucks. But anyway, yeah. So that's what got me into wrestling. My kids really, seeing the passion that they had for it, and seeing the need that was there, similar to the Saints football program. We didn't have a feeder system for our high schools, and we had some kids in wrestling, at Xavier Middle School, but it wasn't enough. You get 12 kids, well, 3 of them actually have matchups they can practice with.
Yeah.
And the other kids are wrestling someone 40 pounds different than them all practice, and it's, no one's getting too much out of it. So, so when we bring this together, we now had, let's see, this season we had, so we went from typically having about a dozen, maybe 10 to a dozen kids on the middle school wrestling team. This first season we had 25. This current season we had 33 or 34 on the middle school team. So, and that's combining both school systems, but now kids have a partner to wrestle with and practice. Right. And really, even just in 2 years, the coaches that we have, Brandon Klein's our head coach for the Saints wrestling program, and Coach Stabani, now that the season's ended, high school season's ended, he's fully into this. And Brandon helped with the high school, so they kind of work together. But they have really brought the level of that middle school wrestling, up significantly in these last 2 seasons. This current season, competing with the public schools, been very successful, which is really fun to see that kind of growth. And I think we're going to see that same thing we were talking about earlier, where as kids are, coming up and, practicing and competing together at a relatively high level through middle school, then when they get to high school, that's going to elevate both of these school systems and the wrestling programs as well, which really plays into football. It all just comes back to football.
Right.
But I know both schools, both Seth and Dave, really like their football players to be wrestlers in the off season, especially if they're not in basketball or a different, winter sport. So that cross training is really important for football, in a lot of ways. But so this past season, we opened it up all the way down to pre-K through 8th grade now. And it's kind of fun. Tonight we had a meet. It was a pre-K through 5th grade meet with Little Shoot and Ishwabanan. And some of those kids that don't, their legs don't even fill up the singlet, and it's kind of hanging off of them. It's fun to watch. Awesome. But they have fun. They start to learn to love wrestling. And who knows? Some of these kids will go all the way through and be really successful high school wrestlers someday.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram.
Wrestling has been, it's always been a very big sport in this area in Northeast Wisconsin. I mean, you look at the Lux Casco, you look at Kaukauna. So to be able to grow something like this at these 2 schools, that's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it's a lot of competition, and that's what I saw, and that's part of why we really wanted to develop this, is to keep up. People are getting into these, wrestling programs younger and younger. And if we want to keep up with the local schools, Little Shoot is building. They've had a successful program, but they're even building from there. Teams in our region, when we get to regionals, this is like the toughest region in the state, in my opinion. I think not by a little bit. Across all divisions. When you get to the Northeast Wisconsin sectional, you have, kind of the cream of the crop. I think we looked at it, and it was something like, you send 3 kids to sectionals or to a state from each sectional. And we had 2 in the top 6 in like every division. So it was the only sectional to pull that many kids onto the podium across the state. So it's a lot of competition. We're not quite to the level of competing with Kaukauna and Luxembourg and Coleman and those quite yet, Wrightstown, but who knows? It may be in the future. We're putting the numbers together and putting the time in.
And I think the biggest thing is, like you said, this is another opportunity. And football and wrestling, the crossover is fantastic. The footwork and body control and all of that is amazing. Absolutely. And we for a lot of those football players, there isn't another sport in the winter. There's not many that had something. So to be able to, like, again, to provide an opportunity for these kids to try something new and learn a little bit about themselves as well. This is fantastic. This is awesome.
Oh, you learn a lot about yourself in wrestling. That's for sure. Because there is that whistle, that first whistle blows, and there is no one you're going to point a finger at. It's not that someone dropped the ball or someone missed their block. You're the only person, and it's you and one other person, and you're on top or on your back at the end. And you do learn a lot about yourself, and it's a way to, succeed through failure in many ways. You know, that's the best way to get better, is to take on matches that you are challenged by, and you learn to improve. Either people are going to be crushed by it, which sometimes people are, or you learn to work harder, get better, take the next steps. And that applies to not only wrestling and football, but life in general. Life is going to knock you down. You got to get back up, and you got to work harder, or you're going to get pinned. But as far as the, I see it all the time, kids, wrestlers or kids who get into wrestling, and football players, I've seen them, not super physical. They do their first year of wrestling, and you only have one option. You got to be physical. And then they come into the following season, a whole different kid. Two specifically, I can point out from Xavier, one of them being my son. He was a decent sophomore player. Wasn't real physical. Went out for wrestling his first season ever as a sophomore. And this is my younger son. He always he didn't want to be like older brother and wrestle. But finally he decided he would do it his sophomore year. And then the following year, junior year, he's a whole different kid on the football field, physical, coming off hard, and that's the kind of things that wrestling teaches you, in addition to all the other great things. But that physicality on the football field, and the, just not hesitating to make contact, and be physical, that really can't be taught in a classroom. That has to be learned, experienced, and done.
Right. Yeah. Has it been tough to find? Are you able to find enough coaches at all the different levels in wrestling, or how do you go about finding quality coaches?
In wrestling?
Yeah.
Well, in
I guess
wrestling,
both sports, really.
Yeah. So in wrestling, we have two main coaches, our head coach and the assistant. So Brandon Klein is the head, and Mackenzie Kading. There are full-time coaches that will coach they'll coach the middle school Monday through Thursday from 4 to 5:30, and then the pre-K to fifth grade from 5:45 until 6:45.
Got it.
Monday and Wednesday. And so they're there all the time. There's, a parent or two who are more kind of just helpers that, can kind of, most of them have wrestled or had some coaching experience. But I think parent coaches often are very good choices for youth sports for primarily the reason, of being invested. These coaches in middle school, Pop Warner moving up, they're almost always, the parent of one of the kids on the team, and they're invested in it. They want to see their kids succeed, probably. But what we've been really lucky with in the football program with the Saints is, our philosophy is of everyone getting playing time, everyone getting meaningful playing time, and being a developmental program, and the coaches buying into that and making sure that everyone is a part of it, because they recognize it's a team sport, and as they move up, they get into high school, they're all going to have experience. And so, at these smaller schools like we are, FEL is getting a little bigger, but still smaller schools, you need to have numbers, and those numbers need experience. You can't just be a number. You got to have some knowing what you're doing. So I kind of morphed from wrestling to football there.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about these two school systems, and what I see so many similarities is the investment of the parents into the welfare of not just their own kid, but the system in general. There's really a lot of investment, and I give a lot of credit to the parents and the parent coaches that do that. So the football program, we typically get 6 or 7 parent coaches for each team, which is plenty. And we get a couple of parent coaches for wrestling to help out the main coaches. One of whom is a parent, one of whom is a former coach of the FVL JV wrestling team, Mackenzie Keating. So, So
you brought up a great point about playing opportunities, and it reminded me in football, and you do this really, really well, the Saints program. Are those extra opportunity games on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, whenever you can get a field, basically? And I mean, that's a full, basically everything but special teams play football, and those kids get a full game, and officials and fans in the field, and the scoreboard is on. It's a real game.
Absolutely. So we play so I guess we didn't really go into this. We play in the Great Lakes Independent Football Conference, which includes all the Appleton teams, Hortonville, and Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, teams from Green Bay, Manitowoc, Port Washington, all over. And we play on Saturdays. But, when you have a team of 40 plus kids, it's difficult to get everyone a meaningful amount of playing time every single Saturday. We do that. We try to get, if we have a team greater than 40, we try to get some games on Tuesdays. You refereed some of those games, I know.
I have, yes.
Or officiated, I guess. And they were a lot of fun. We treat it the same as every other game. We just call them non-conference games. Different guys get different opportunities. Maybe they didn't play as much on Saturday, but you're going to play all game on Tuesday, and that is going to get you, a good opportunity. And as the season goes on, you get injuries, and different kids get different opportunities anyway. Again, it's not all about the winning and losing on Saturday. So we're making sure that kids get, especially if there's not a Tuesday game coming up, everyone's getting meaningful playing time. And this past season, we actually split teams, which had its challenges. We had, 20 on each team to start, or 22 or to 23. It ended up being a little bit light, and, we ended up having to kind of recombine because of injuries at the 6th grade level. But, the good of it was that people got lots of opportunities. Kids got a lot of playing time in football. There's only 8 games in football. This isn't like basketball where you're playing 32 games. You got 8 opportunities.
Yeah.
So
I was curious. I mean, with my youngest Ethan coming through, you have top of the line equipment at the Saints. Yeah. So how did that come to be? Was that something you absolutely sought out, that I want to make sure these kids are protected, and let parents know that, because your equipment is top notch?
Yeah. So I know Clint Brightman is our local Zenith rep. And he had talked with me a lot about the rating and safety and quality of the Zenith helmets, and being the top rated, youth football helmet for safety and everything. That came number one. Kids like them because they look cool too, and they're not just an egg on your head. But that was important to me, and it was really important, especially as we were getting started in this, in the program, with parents being confident in their equipment, because that was right around the time there were some movies coming out about, head injuries, and it was really in the press quite a bit about 4 years ago. And it's, it still is. And I think it's a very important thing, but it was right on the top of everyone's mind. And I wanted to make sure that we were doing, everything we could. And with our sponsorships that we had, and the support of the, the registration fees, and the people that were doing the fundraiser, people really worked hard on the fundraiser, and we got the money to do it. I said, well, let's get top of the line. And, we're not here to make a profit. We're here to make a good experience for our kids and let them play safe football. So not only we got the helmets, and then we started working our way down the line and getting all the top of the line Zenith shoulder pads and all that stuff. And again, that wouldn't be possible to get that extra in the budget if it weren't for our sponsors, you know, that are donating their time or donating their money to the program. So it's been really helpful.
And it's really made a difference. I know the Appleton schools report on their concussions, and it's you're lucky to have one concussion really out of all three schools. I know you guys very rarely have them, but the coaches also are teaching football the correct way, the heads up football, the proper way to tackle, maybe the hawk tackle, some people refer it to as, and that's making a big difference as well. So I mean, you know, not only are you in the best equipment you can have, you're being taught the correct way to play football, and it's making it is 100% making football a lot safer than it's ever been.
No doubt. I was actually just talking last night with or the other night with Carrie Linsmeyer, who is the athletic trainer that head of the athletic trainers that we have at our games, and she was talking about the number of concussions we've had this year across all sports, and I'm like, really? Because we didn't have more than like one, maybe a second minor one all football season with 130 kids. She's like, I know. She's like, that's amazing. Wow. And so it's true, and she's seen that across the board too in football, and seeing more so in, you know, other sport. Like, how do you get a concussion in basketball? I don't know. I guess you fall down backwards and hit your head on the wood. You know, there's a lot of ways you can get concussions, but these kids are not putting. You know, it's not put your helmet on them or get your head down or stick them or whatever. That kind of talk anymore just doesn't happen in our practices. It doesn't happen in the games. The referees, the officials, you know about, are watching for that sort of thing. If it looks like someone is targeting or putting their head down, they're getting a flag. They're getting talked to at a young level, right away. And we're making sure that kids know that safety is a big part of this game right from the get-go. And so it's not something new that comes to them in high school. It's something that, you know, is taught all throughout. And now the coaches that we have, you know, some of them are, you know, they're old school, you know, football players, but they get it. They know that you got to do it the right way, or football is not going to be wouldn't be sustainable to keep having a bunch of people trying to be Chuck Cecil out there.
Yeah, you got to love the blood pouring from the bridge of the nose, right? That was a good look. Right. You know, you'd mentioned in basketball how they get it. And I think that's how the concussions now mostly happen in football. You know, my experience as an official, you can see it. It's their foot gets tangled up and the back of their head hits the turf. And that's, the helmets are really great at absorbing that, but it's still, they're not 100% effective on that particular play. But that's almost.
I would agree. It's that the probably half of the ones that I have observed over the last 5 years have been falling back and hitting your head backwards on the, you know, on the turf in football. And you know, going back to what you're talking about with the helmets that we have, these Zenith helmets, they flex when you hit. So it absorbs the pressure, and it kind of like bows in a little bit to absorb that pressure. And it's not a hard knock. It's it's interesting to just hear the sound when you bang the helmets together. It's a whole different sound than it used to be. And they used to like bang apart when you hit them together, but you do this and they don't bang apart.
Right.
It really is a very simple way to demonstrate the additional safety that those helmets have.
We'll have to have Clint on. That would be an interesting conversation to talk.
Oh, he'd tell you all about it.
Oh, absolutely. He's world class at telling about that. Yeah, absolutely.
He is. He is.
As you look to the future here in the next few years and stuff, what are some of your future goals, or what does future stuff look like for both the wrestling and the football programs?
Well, you know, I think continuing to build on numbers. You know, we've had a lot of success already in building numbers in the football programs, but keeping that strong. We have enough kids in our systems that we have room to grow still. Definitely in wrestling. but certainly in football as well. And so that I think would be a kind of one of the goals in both of those sports. Really, it is all about numbers. When you get to, like I said, to the high school level, if you got 25 kids per year coming in, that's going to build a strong program in football. Right. In wrestling, if you have 8 kids per class coming in, or more, you're going to build a strong program that's going to be able to have a full varsity and, filling all the slots from top to bottom. That is something that hasn't happened at Xavier or FVL consistently by any means for some time. So being able to fill those varsity slots is kind of a goal for wrestling. And again, it's all about numbers. And then getting the quality of that wrestling to grow, and that's through the years, that's through the experience. The only way you get better at wrestling is wrestling. Football, I would say that you can get better at football in the weight room. You can get better at football by doing your off-season conditioning, your off-season, speed, plyometrics, agility stuff. But the only way you get better at wrestling is wrestling. And so, I'd say that's probably one of my biggest goals. Obviously, the football programs have already been, I think, relatively successful, but taking both of those programs to the next level and doing that through beefing up the youth sports aspect of it is really, and you see it like time and time again across school systems. Their success in high school is because of the middle school program. But that said, not the primary goal of success. Wins and losses isn't again, I'll say it again, it's not the primary goal of our middle school program. It's getting kids developed and having a good time. And continuing to build on this past year. I guess this is another thing we haven't brought up. We partnered with the Fellowship for Christian Athletes this last season, and Andy Huck has been a very instrumental in getting that integrated into our program. And every Wednesday, the kids get together at the end of practice, go through a lesson. Usually there's a Bible verse connected to that the FCA helps provide, and a lesson that they kind of help provide. Andy does a great job of kind of doing his own thing too. And then they say a little prayer at the end of it. And I think that is an important part of the goals of this program as well. It's recognizing that there is something more than just football. It's bringing us back to center for a minute, 5 minutes. That's all it is. 5 minutes once a week, and that's all it takes. But it reminds you, and it's a weekly reminder. So that's another thing that I want to continue to build on and continue to make sure that we have that be a part of it for both of these programs.
Well, having 2 kids that have come through with you with this program, I will be honest to say that it's been a fantastic experience for both. They still talk about some of their time playing 8th grade and playing. Ethan was, I think, the first 6th grade team, and he was the first person, the first group to come all the way through, and it was fantastic. You do a great job, and there's so many lessons that have been learned, and just great experiences. And like you said, it's not about winning and losing. It's about developing and making these kids grow into good individuals in the future. And you do a fantastic job doing that.
Well, thanks. I love that you're giving me all the credit, but the coaches really deserve the lion's share of the credit. I like to help to give them a framework that we every time we meet, we meet a couple times in the summer with all the coaches. We get together and we talk about the mission statement of our program. What are the goals of our program? And we always start with the first one. Honor God is number one in all things we do, in the way you behave, the way that you treat your fellow players, your opponents, your teammates, your officials, the coaches. Behaving in that manner is all a part of that. And you're maximizing your God-given abilities is another one of the big parts of that kind of that statement. And then, making sure that it's fun, developing friends and memories, and then developing as a football player. And then again, winning being the final goal there. And only important if you've achieved 1 through 5. And so the coaches really, I think, take that to heart. The coaches, again, giving them kind of a framework to work on, making sure that we're all on the same page about what are we here to do. Is it to go undefeated and have 15 guys that never see the field, or is it doing all those things? And they've really been on board. So good. Credit to them.
Gosh, the most pressing question I have, though, is when's your next wrestling match?
Well, it's as early as June, late June. That may or may not happen this season, depending on how the back and the shoulders hold up. But we have plans to compete in the Rocket Rumble again this year. And
nice.
That's the one that has the 31 and up division. So, I will probably this year be the oldest wrestler at the meet if I were to compete. Last year, there was a guy that I ended up wrestling him. He was a year older than me. They announce it at there's a trophy.
Oh, nice.
For the oldest wrestler. Oh, yeah. And he was a year older than me, and he said he's not coming back next year, so it'll probably be me.
Wow.
Do you have like a training camp to prepare for it? I mean, obviously you don't go in blind. How does that work? Lead up to it.
Well, we have our spring wrestling program, and I work out with the kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I wrestled with my son with Will. We pull the mat out onto the grass so that we're not hitting our heads on the
Right.
wall or on the floor, and we practice out on the lawn. On the mat. So,
that's awesome.
Try to stay in shape all year long, but you got to ramp it up for that.
Well, you'll have to keep us updated on that. I'm curious to see how that goes.
I will. It'll be fun. It'll be an adventure for the kids anyway, because that was their favorite part about going to the tournament last year, was getting to watch me do it. I don't know if they were hoping that I'd lose or hoping that I'd win, but either way, it was fun.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want Dad to get beat up or no? I don't know.
No. Well, no, he wanted to take credit for my for being my coach.
Oh, yes, yeah. Even better. I love that.
Just like every high school coach wants a state champion wrestler to, hey, I coached that kid.
Start the resume young.
Right.
All right, Tosh, it is Red Smith Banquet Throwback time. And we have a special one this week, a very appropriate one this week. We go back to 1999, and it's going to be just slightly different for us. We've become accustomed to releasing these on our YouTube channel and in video form and taking us back to all the different years of the banquet. However, in 1999, for some reason, the DVD disc that we have is a little bit scrambled, maybe a little bit damaged. I'm not sure, but we have fantastic audio, but no video this week, Tosh. But we wanted to get Peter King out there. He retired this past week from Sports Illustrated. Long time NFL writer. Really one of the most respected NFL writers. But we thought it was appropriate to have his speech from 1999. It was fantastic. That was a heck of a banquet. We had Paul Molitor and Bobby Rahal. We had all the sports represented that year. But we thought it was important to get Peter out there and let all the folks know that Peter King did come to Appleton in 1999.
Yeah, he's obviously an amazing amount of time, 20 some years at 29 years, 30 years at Sports Illustrated, and he was on Football Morning in America. He wrote on Pro Football Talk. He was a sports writer he was the football writer for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
And he was also on Football Night in America, NBC Sports' Sunday night NFL coverage. So, yeah, he's obviously an amazing career. And like you said, a fantastic speech at the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his whole life has been the NFL. I mean, we've all read him and have seen him on TV. You know, I was reflecting back a little bit because we all got Sports Illustrated before, obviously before the internet. That's how we got our news, the newspapers and Sports Illustrated, and looked at the pictures, and Peter King was there. But, when the Packers started their run back in the 90s, when Holmgren arrived and Ron Wolf, back in 95, it was a little bit unprecedented back then, but Holmgren allowed Peter King full access to the to the team, to the meetings and all that, and he documented that and wrote about the 95 season. It was quite good. I'd recommend folks going back and reading his articles. But yeah, that was unusual for Holmgren, unusual for the Packers to allow a reporter full access, but they did for Peter King, and I guess it speaks to just how well respected he was, and what a fine reporter and columnist he definitely was.
And, he has 5 books on football as well. Right. And one little known fact, this goes back to 2005. The governor of New Jersey appointed King to a fact-finding task force in an attempt to end steroids and human growth hormone in high school athletics.
Ah, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So all kinds of stuff from Mr. Peter King. So
no, absolutely. So enjoy the audio. I mean, if you're listening to this in podcast form, you don't have to worry about it, but you find folks out there in YouTube land that are looking at Tosh and I right now. If you could do us a favor and hit like and subscribe, that would be huge. But also just enjoy the audio of Peter King, and go take a look at our catalog, Tosh. We've got 30-some throwbacks now from past banquets, and they're all really, really good. And little flashbacks, a lot of humor. It's well worth your time.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Please welcome Peter King. Peter.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. Well, I just want to tell you what a great place you guys have. I am so honored to be here, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've been here a few times over the years to cover pro football games, stayed in this hotel a few times. And when Mike Reese called and asked me to speak to the group tonight, the first thing I thought of is, you got the wrong guy. I sit out there, I take notes, and I listen to Paul Molitor, I listen to Bobby Rahal. I mean, I shouldn't be here. But Mike said, don't worry about it, just talk about the Packers and everything will be okay. I got a few of those stories. The first one of those is about 10 years old. When I first got to work for Sports Illustrated, they said that, every Sunday we want you to go to a game that's pretty interesting in your mind. So that first year I said, I've never been to a Packers-Bears game, and I'd really like to see what that's all about. So the Bears were staying right here in this hotel, and I called the Bears PR guy and said, can I get together maybe for an early dinner Saturday night with a couple of players? So they got me Ron Rivera and Jim Morrissey. We walked up College Avenue to Victoria's. And Jim Morrissey and Ron Rivera were looking around, and they said, isn't this place great? I mean, this is like Beaver Cleaver's hometown. I didn't really know Brett Favre much before I asked Mike Holmgren if I could hang around his team for a week in 1995. And this was a pretty interesting week. Packers were 5-3. Minnesota was coming to town, big game, playing for the division lead. And as I hung around the team that week, I really got an interesting view, and I want to tell you a couple of stories. One of them appeared in the magazine when I wrote this story, but a couple of details I left out. On Monday, Holmgren called two young running backs into his office, Travis Jervey and LaShawn Johnson. And Mike has, one thing I found out about Mike, he had a great pipeline to the locker room. I don't know whether the place was mic'd or whether he had a hidden camera and two-way glass, but I mean, it was really interesting that he knew what was going on before a lot of the players knew he knew. So he calls Travis Jervey and LaShawn Johnson into his office, and they say, "What do we do, Coach?" And he said, "You know what you did. You got to get rid of that lion." And they said, "What?" They were shocked. Mike Holmgren knew that Travis Jervey and LaShawn Johnson had bought for $5,500 a real lion. They bought it from an exotic animal dealer in Texas. They had it drugged, flown up here, went and picked it up at the Green Bay airport. They picked it up, and it was living on their living room couch. And before they could even try to tell Mike that we're getting this thing housebroken, Mike didn't want to hear anything of it. He said, "Listen, you get rid of that lion or you're going to be suspended." So I don't know what they did with it, but apparently they got rid of it because they weren't suspended. So Mike finishes with them, they leave the office, and he's shaking his head and he says to me, "You work your whole career to be a coach at the highest level of football. And you get there. You're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the place where Lombardi coached. And you got the biggest game maybe you've ever had. We're playing for the division lead, playing the Minnesota Vikings, putting together the game plan. And I got to take 20 minutes out of my life to tell two guys on the team they can't have a lion." I don't know, I have a feeling that Ray Rhodes is probably not going to have many lion problems. I think Travis Jervey knows that maybe an iguana, Gila monster, that'll be about it for him. Brett Favre, funny guy. Mike Holmgren, I guess once every month or so, I don't know, Lee Remmel and Jeff would know this, but every once in a while he has the players sign footballs to give to charity. And so, I'm in the locker room watching him do this, and all the guys are kind of giving Favre a lot of guff. And I didn't know what they were talking about. So Holmgren walks into the locker room and he says, "I'm sick and tired of having some charity from Oshkosh call me back and say, 'Who is this John Doe?' and who's Jay Leno? Or we got an autographed ball with Ronald Reagan's name on it. What are you doing?" And so Mike had to come in the locker room, and again, a big game week. Boy, they were concentrating on the Vikings this week. We got to stop John Randall. And Mike Holmgren has to walk in and point a finger at Favre and say, "Stop fooling around with these balls. Sign your own name." And the one name that Favre always thought was great, that he thought he got away with because Mike didn't know it, he signed Wayne Newton once. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I always wanted to be Wayne Newton. I like the way he dresses." I think one of the reasons that I started to hang around with Favre a little bit is because he loves oldies. And one day we got in his car after doing something, and he put on an oldies CD. And he thought that it was the greatest thing in the world that I knew every word to Crimson and Clover by Tommy James and the Shondells. So every time we'd go out, we'd have these little contests. I would have to sing a song, or he would have to sing one to see. And I remember, it wasn't this past year, it was 1997. We were out one time, and he put one on, and I got to admit, I must have been in my classical music phase, my 10-minute classical music phase about 15 years ago. But he puts on this song called Kung Fu Fighting. And he knows every word, every single word. And he's singing it and having the time of his life. And he was so happy because he's such a competitive guy that if he can beat you at singing an oldie, he's thrilled. He thinks that's the greatest thing in the world. One other time, again, in I think it was '97 season, I found out how competitive he was. He had his whole family come in. I don't remember. I think it was before the playoff game, before they went to San Francisco, so the wild card game or whatever the divisional game was. And we'd eaten at the Green Bay Country Club, and I wasn't that familiar with the roads, but I knew him okay. I had driven one car. He drove his big SUV, and there was about 12 people, so we kind of crowded into the cars afterwards. And I made sure that I got in my car first because Favre was always bragging about what a great driver he was. And I rolled down the window, and Irvin Favre, Brett's father, is sitting in the seat next to me, and I rolled down the window and I said, "Beat you home." You know, that's real mature for me, a 40-year-old father of two. Beat you home. And so Favre didn't say anything, and I burned rubber going out of the parking lot. And Brett's father said, "You ain't beating him home. He won't let you." And I said, "Well, we'll see." So I'm driving Bobby Rahall's speed on the streets of Green Bay. And we get to this intersection. It's, 300 yards from his house. And we're stopped at a stoplight. And from the total opposite direction, tooling along at 34 miles an hour, here comes Brett Favre. And I could see he was smiling widely because he knew what I was trying to do. So we get home, get to his house. He's closing the garage door. And he waves to me, and I said, "You blankety blank." And he said, "Never in doubt." I just want to thank everybody here for inviting me and making me part of a wonderful night. This has been one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done as a sports writer. And I just want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here tonight. Thanks.
Peter King, thank you.
All right, Tosh. Well, it's that time again. It's forgotten, and I'm never forgetting. So, Tosh, what's forgotten in your world?
You know what? I think this is a forgotten for our entire society, is the lack of just pickup sports or pickup activities, whether it's playing kick to can, whether it's kickball, whether it's playing baseball with four guys. I think we just, we've talked about that with some of our guests, and it's incredible that when it's 60 degrees out, I don't see more kids out in the park playing whatever.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. In fact, I'm almost stunned when I see people outside playing catch. The other day, right. I saw a dad and his kids were playing remember the old 500 where you throw the ball up or whatever and you try to catch
absolutely.
it. They were playing that. I was actually in shock that it was happening, but you're right. Nice days where we've had 60-degree weather. We'd be playing kick the can, capture the flag, any kind of form of sports, riding your bike, whatever. You'd just be outside, and I don't know. Maybe we're the old guy yelling at the clouds, but
we could be. I don't know. I know Saturday I took the lacrosse net out of the garage and brought it to a park, so Ethan and a couple friends could go out there and shoot and just rip some lacrosse balls.
Yeah,
but there wasn't a whole lot else going on unless you were like under the age of 5 playing in the playground with your parents.
Right.
There weren't a lot of kids just, I remember just, 4 guys playing baseball.
Oh.
All right, you got to hit it to the opposite field. If you hit it to your strong side, you're out. It's just, you don't see that as much anymore.
Can you? I think about this a lot. So I grew up playing wiffle ball.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think how many innings of wiffle ball I would have thrown in a summer. I mean, you talk about these pitchers on pitch counts. I had to throw 300 innings of just wiffle ball all summer. You'd go out there for just hours on end and just chuck the ball.
When did you have Tommy John surgery?
Yeah, but I tell you what, Tosh, I need it. That's having shoulder issues right now.
Yeah. So what's forgotten for you?
Well, I think I actually, speaking of that, I think I used that was sleep injuries one time. And legit, I think I have a sleep injury on my shoulder. But no, that's not my forgetting, Tosh. I got to throw myself under the bus, Tosh. I think I've forgotten how to spell, my spelling abilities. The last 2 weeks when we've put out the Newsa-Cast, and this is 100% on me, I have not checked close enough the spelling of our guests of the title of the thing. So for the Newsa-Cast, the last 2 episodes, and it's gone out, and it's only been out for a couple of minutes when it got released, and it's this last one, Tosh, I looked at it and I saw nothing wrong with it, and it's like, what the heck? I have forgotten how to spell, and maybe I blame autocorrect. I don't know, but
there you go.
Holy cow!
Blame technology.
Yes, I'm blaming that for sure. But yeah, my spelling abilities are forgotten. That's for sure.
Well, it's easy to forget how to spell when everything's done for you.
Yeah, that's facts. Very, very true. Well, Tosh, we've forgotten some things, but what are we never forgetting? What's never forgotten in your world?
Well, I was up super early with the dogs on Saturday morning, and I was sitting there, let them out, fed them, and turned on TV, and just really started to reminisce about Sunday morning cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, and how there aren't those Saturday morning. You had Bugs Bunny, the Looney Tunes, Roadrunner, all of those cartoons.
Hall of Justice.
Yeah, and you could sit from like 6 a.m. until like 10 o'clock in the morning and just watch straight cartoons.
Absolutely.
Now,
they were good.
They're good. Mm-hmm. Now nothing's on except infomercials.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I miss that ability to watch those, and not that I would watch cartoons now, but the ability for kids to sit and even watch some cartoons and some good cartoons, not some of the stuff that we have out now, but some of those cartoons from the past.
Tosh, it's begging for me to tag right along. This wasn't even going to be my forgetting, but how about the comic strips? Remember that? The newspaper? Yeah, I remember, in the 70s, 80s or whatever, eating breakfast and you'd be reading the comic strip. You didn't have ESPN or anything like that, or you didn't have a phone, any of that. You read the cereal boxes or you read the comic strips, because most people, a lot of people got the newspaper in the morning, so you'd have a morning and an afternoon paper. And yeah, I mean, Beetle Bailey and Garfield.
Unfortunately, when is the last time you read a newspaper?
Yeah, I miss the art of reading a newspaper, cross the leg over, right? Hold the paper open,
Cup of coffee.
Oh, nothing better. Yeah. Nothing better, Tosh, than reading the paper. There's only one person I know that still reads the paper. It's our good friend Dub. He gets 2 newspapers delivered, and he sits down every morning and he reads the newspaper. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, shout out Dub on reading the paper.
Yeah,
he's never forgetting. That's for sure.
Well, that was good. Those are some. That's some nostalgia right there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I stress over it coming in with an idea, Tosh, and it just unfolds right during this segment. Let's go.
There you go.
All right, well, Tosh, we survived another episode. That was another good one. We learned a lot about the Saints football and how that program started, and we got into wrestling, and like usual, we get into all kinds of things. So I love it, Tosh. I love it.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from the past Red Smith banquets.
Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thank you to Diggstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. One of the best ways to help us grow is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.